Hello everyone, bringing you a bonus mannequin video today. As explained in the Mannequin of the Month video for this month, there's now the opportunity to vote on the Mannequin of the Month videos over on Patreon on the corporal tier, and the first one voted for was actually a tie between this and the Mannequin of the Month subject, which was British Army of the Rhine 1950s, early 1950s. So as both were winners, I thought that I'd flip a coin, see which one would be the actual Mannequin of the Month, and then cover the other one as a bonus mannequin. So here we are. As you'll have seen in the title, this is representing Royal Navy upper deck crew in the South Atlantic in 1982, essentially serving as extemporised anti-aircraft gunners. Whilst some of the older ships in the task force sent to the Falkland Islands in 1982 did have considerable close-in anti-aircraft firepower in the form of Bofors guns and even 20mm cannon, some of the more modern ships relied more heavily on missiles with radar guidance, and the problems with ground clutter and the very low-level attack runs taken by Argentine pilots caused serious problems, and it was necessary to press into service men armed with GPMGs, L4 light machine guns, and even L1A1 self-loading rifles to basically throw up fire and provide some form of close-in air defence. Obviously the South Atlantic in the beginning of the winter down there, our spring, their autumn, winter, is not a very hospitable place, so foul weather clothing was essential. But as usual, we will start at the top and work down and talk about the various bits and pieces, the worn on the mannequin here, that made up the kit worn by men serving on the upper decks of Royal Navy ships. As you'll have seen in the photographs we looked at there, some also wore body armour. I haven't included that here because it makes it difficult to fit other bits and pieces on the mannequin. You tend to see the chaps wearing body armour aren't actually wearing their survival kit, which is an interesting bit of naval kit to look at. So I've tried to keep this based on photographs I've seen and not mash all the kit together just to show it off. But as you will have seen in the photographs, some men did wear body armour in addition to what we have here, well, dispensing with the survival suit, life jacket and so forth. We'll get into the details of what's on the mannequin here now. Starting at the top, we have the Royal Armoured Corps pattern steel helmet. These were worn by the Royal Navy at this time. They'd been introduced in the post-war, the immediate post-war years into Royal Navy service. There'd been a crossover period with the Mark II helmet, but these were seen as more practical. The wide rim was seen as being a bit of an encumbrance, and having the helmet without the rim like this was purely seen as more as a better design for use on board ship, essentially. So these were still in use at this time. You can see at the neck here a white roll neck sweater. These are more commonly associated with submarine wear and small ships earlier on, certainly, but they seem to have been quite extensively used in the Falklands as a piece of very good cold weather gear. It's a very warm sweater, although of course the standard issue jersey heavy wool in blue for the Royal Navy was in service by this point. This is definitely a superior extra layer of warmth, having the roll collar and everything keeps a layer of warm air next to the body and keeps your neck warm as well. We then have the foul weather jacket, and this is a design which had sort of developed by increments from new foul weather clothing introduced post-war in the 1950s, which were still made of essentially similar to previous oilcloth clothing, although now actually made in a PVC. And we then moved on to the design, evolved, modified a little bit, and then eventually made in nylon, as you can see here, with what would have been known at the time as touch and close, but a Velcro fastening down the front there. I'll remove the helmet now and we can have a quick look at the details of the hood underneath, which is designed for extreme cold weather use. So I've removed the helmet now, and if I pull the hood up here, you can see that we have actually in here a face mask which can be drawn across. This is basically a foam rubber covered in sort of vinyl material. There's a peak to the hood as well, as you can see here, and it also has straps to allow it to be adjusted in around the head, which we'll have a look at when we look at the back of the mannequin in a minute. In addition, the hood does also have a draw cord, which you can see here, which has a rubber stop on the end which can be slid along the nylon cord here to pull the hood in around the head and give more protection. Moving down the mannequin, we have here on the front the Mark III life jacket in its carrier. I have done a separate video on these, which of course I'll put a card to in the video if you want to see more details of this. Essentially an updated version of a design which had been around since the 1950s, but made in more modern materials by this point, nylon and so forth. And that's worn on a waist belt around the waist there. Underneath this we have the survival suit, the once only suit as it was known. in its vinyl carry case here, which just has these straps with lifted up fasteners. When we have a look at the side of the mannequin, you'll be able to see that more clearly. This pouch closed with 2 press studs. It's a bright orange survival suit. I have done a separate video on this as well. So again, I will put a card in the video. You'll be able to go and have a look at that in more detail if you wish to. Have a look at an 80s dated example and a slightly later 90s one. Actually, no, I think the one in the video is 60s dated, but exactly the same as was worn at this time, and possibly those dating from that period still in use at this time. As you can see, in addition to the press studs, elastic bands are also being used to stop this from flapping open and dropping the survival suit out to the bottom. So your survival gear there, your life jacket and survival suit, very easy to get at around the front. We'll move this round now and have a look at the side, which will show you the way that the survival suit pouch attaches onto the bottom of or attaches onto the strap of the life jacket. Here we have the left-hand side of the mannequin, and again you can see the draw cord around the hood here with this rubber stop that just slides along. A little bit clearer to see that there. Moving down, we can see here the respirator haversack, which we'll talk a little bit more about when we move the mannequin around to look at the back. You can see here the side strap, the strap going around the waist for the life jacket here. When you want to use this, you open up the flap and you just pull the life jacket out over your head, and it's attached around the waist and then around the neck by the sort of yoke. The straps are just set up for that. You just pull it over your head and it's in a position where you're wearing it and it's ready to inflate. There's also a loop at the front so that the waist belt can be used to help pull you into a life raft. So it's quite a neat design. Underneath this, of course, we have the pouch for the survival suit, as already said, and you can see here how this attaches. We have these cotton straps up the side here with a lift-the-dot fastener. Some of the carriers would have nylon straps later on. This is a 60s dated example, still being used at the time. And that's simply how it attaches onto the belt of the life jacket, upside down, so you can just pull the flap open and pull the suit out and don it. We'll move this round now and have a look at the back and talk about the respirator haversack. Looking at the back of the mannequin here, I'll just remove the helmet again so we can have a look at the back of the hood. Taking a look at the hood, we can see the straps crossing over here with a buckle at each corner, which allows the hood to be drawn in around the head. My understanding is this is to prevent it being blown back in foul weather, windy weather, being blown back off the head. It's quite an interesting piece of the design. How effective it was, I don't know, but something interesting to look at there. And then obviously again we have the peak, as you can see there. The smock is also configured with Velcro epaulets at the shoulder there. Obviously officers already had slip-on rank by this point, but alongside the foul weather clothing, epaulets were produced for ratings. So a white epaulette printed in blue, which could be worn on the shoulder. You don't commonly see them worn in the Foglands, but they did exist at the time, and they were certainly used later on. And they're printed in the same sort of way as tropical and working dress badges, with rank shown by an anchor for leading seamen, crossed anchors and crown for petty officers, and the laurel wreath with anchor in the centre surmounted by a crown for chief petty officers. Warrant officers had embroidered yellow on black epaulets, which showed the royal coat of arms. So we'll move on now to have a look at the rest of what's on the mannequin here. The first thing we can see lower down is the waist belt coming round for the life jacket, which just sits on the hips there. On the left hip, worn on the shoulder strap around the waist, quite a comfortable way and a practical way of carrying it, is the haversack for the S6 respirator, the nylon haversack. And you can see obviously that the shoulder strap is just looped around the waist and then clipped on with the D-ring. It's quite a convenient way of doing it. It's not difficult to do. And obviously you then don't have the discomfort of having the strap over your chest. In addition, on the strap, we have here the a plastic cup, which is quite common to see in period photographs. My assumption being that the men were being provided with hot drinks and as regularly as they could be, and obviously having the cup on you just expedites that slightly. Something as a little bit of a comfort against the cold, the nasty weather in the South Atlantic at this time. There's nothing really to see on the right hip, so we'll leave it there. So there we are. That's a look at the sort of upper deck crew kit uniform that was worn. Obviously, lots of concessions to the cold weather there in terms of the heavy wool sweater and the foul weather clothing. And men would also wear anti-flash, at least to some degree. There are some photographs showing men without anti-flash on. Certainly the anti-flash hood served as a bit of a balaclava, as well as its anti-flash properties in protecting you from flame. Gloves and hood could be worn, but obviously a little bit difficult to display those on the mannequin. That's something I have covered in previous videos as well, looking at the Christmas Island nuclear tests. I'll put a card to that in the video as well if you wish to see the anti-flash gear being worn, give you an idea what it looks like. But as I say, that's everything I wanted to cover in this video. As said at the start of the video, obviously the Patreon, on the Patreon feed, if you're in the corporal tier, you get to vote on these, and obviously if things tie again, I will endeavour to do both mannequins that people vote for. So the latest poll is up over there, so if you want to go check that out, link in the description. There's also a PayPal link if you want to make a one-time donation to the channel, which some people have, and I'm very grateful to people for that. I really appreciate it. Of course, there's also the Facebook and Instagram page where there'll be photographs of this posted up. And if you like my videos and you'd like to see more, then please do consider subscribing to the channel, and make sure you hit the little notification button as well, which obviously notifies you when I do upload future videos. But that's everything for this video, so until next time, bye for now.